like to call to order a special meeting of the Village of Westmont for Visiting Workshop, Quincy Streetscape Phase 2. It's called to order at 4:30 p.m. on Thursday, December 7th, 2023. Roll call, there's 2 trustees, it's a workshop. We don't have a quorum, so there's no official business anyway. What I'd ask everybody...
One trustee, by the way.
One trustee.
One trustee, one mayor.
Yeah, that's 2 of us.
Okay.
But if everybody please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, it's being recorded. So I want to welcome everyone. This is an opportunity to share a vision, not the final vision, but to get input from various people in the community. You'll have as we're going through it, you'll have an opportunity to raise your hand and you can discuss it, ask questions. I have an open forum in here, but since it's on the agenda, unless somebody wants to address us besides the streetscape, we'll wait till they start going through it. And if you want to comment on it, I'd ask you to come up to the podium so you're on camera. We want to make sure, and we can hear you. So again, I'm going to turn this over to the manager so we can keep moving along.
Yeah, so this evening, and there is the single agenda item, and it'll be on there, but it's not really meant to be, a formal meeting. So there'll be, an introduction by our Public Works Director, Amy Reese. We'll have a presentation of where consultants and design workshop and landscape architects are with this thought in this project. They're the same group that has worked on the other block of Quincy Street. And the purpose tonight is to gather everybody's efforts, not only in what you think is needed, but what are the opportunities for this, this next phase, and what would you, like to see, like fire, that's my input. Write that down. So, Amy Reese, you can take it from here.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for attending. I just want to introduce myself, Amy Reese with the Public Works Department. We have a lot of other city staff here tonight, or village staff here tonight. John Yater, Forestry, Mel Brendel with Street Division, who have also been very instrumental in pushing this project forward. And also to introduce our design team, Primera Engineers, Chad, and some of you know Austin from the job site, Kyle, Mary Ellen, and then from Design Workshop, which is the planning and landscape architecture firm, Manisha and Rosalie are also here this evening. So they've prepared a presentation for us to go through, to discuss some of the, why are we here, some of the concepts that we're going into the streetscape development, and then there'll be some time for some interactive exercises to see what do people like, what do they not like, what should we consider, what elements are your favorite, which ones do you not like, those kind of things. So there'll be an interactive element also. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chad.
Thank you, Amy. So I'll try and speak loud. Let me know if I'm speaking too loud. I'm going to go through intros one more time, and I'm going to ask the people that I introduced to stand up so you get a good face with the name. My name is Chad Dillevue. I'm with Primera Engineers. Primera is the lead consultant on this project. They were lead on phase 1 as well. Next to me, we have Kyle Howler. Please stand, Kyle. Kyle and I are the day-to-day. We've been working on phase 2 pretty much since it got going. Kyle's pretty new to Primera, but he brings a ton of experience with us. Next, I'd like to introduce Mary Ellen Mack. Mary Ellen is our senior construction group manager. She's working with Austin day-to-day and during the phase 1 construction. And then Austin, no, please stand. I'll stop waving my hand, sorry. Austin's been out in the street every day, listening to everything you've got to say and making sure that we can make it work. And then we'll talk about what our sub-consultants here. Design Workshop, this is Manisha Call, principal architect and the lead architect on the phase 1 and phase 2 project. And then Rosalie Starenko, also from Design Workshop, day-to-day designer, landscape designer. We're here to talk about phase 2, but we're not dismissing phase 1, but most of what we want to talk about is phase 2. Let's see. So a quick agenda, why we're here. We're here for phase 2. We'll talk a little bit about the scope of phase 2, what we're looking at as far as limits of work, what we want to do, what we'd like to hear about, how we're going to deliver that, the timeline. We'll go through timeline. We'll talk about what the next steps are after this meeting. We'll discuss the existing conditions of phase 2, and then make sure we talk, at length about the issues that we saw in phase 1, but also what we'd like to avoid in phase 2. Goals and opportunities is going to be a best part. This next few are the best part of the presentation. This is where Design Workshop really gets to flex their creative muscles and show you everything they've come up with. That includes site furniture, and then the site furniture will be similar, if not exact, to what we've already done with phase 1 in Addington Plaza. But it's not to say we can't hear more ideas or potentially look at other things. And then we want to take a break, if I'm not incorrect, to kind of walk through the slides and the boards that we have set up, hear your feedback. It sounded like Manager May wanted feedback to be recorded, so please feel free to come up and talk. Is the volume okay? Yes. All right, good, excellent. And then after that, we'll talk questions, look at the board, and then kind of wrap up, bring everybody back up and talk about what we do and don't like and what we want to see done. All right, so previous studies. Now, we showed the top 3 that we thought made the most sense. We have been looking at more and more documents. A lot of the information has been provided by the village, but also publicly available. We looked at the strategic plan from 2021, the comprehensive plan. This says 2013, but I believe that was updated in 2016, if I'm not mistaken. And then also this grade separated ped crossing. Now, my understanding is the existing ped crossing has already been demolished, correct? Yes. So at this point, the village is looking at getting a different crossing there that'll be safer and more conducive to rail operations, but also pedestrian safety and operations. Some of the takeaways from those, so we looked at the strategic plan. Kind of the big one is, it seemed that the idea was a more friendly neighborhood and streets for pedestrians. Vehicles, everything is kind of designed around a vehicle. But we want to make sure that we're not excluding pedestrians and keeping everybody more sustainable design and also a more walkable and livable design. The comprehensive plan, kind of addressing the key takeaways that we felt now when we're addressing the history, the rich history of Westmont, being a brick fab industry, brick fabrication. And then more green space, better sustainable features, better best management practice in stormwater, as engineers like to say, making sure that the design we come up with lasts a lifetime, if not longer. The grade separation is still in progress, is my understanding. That's being done by a separate consultant, but we will work hand in hand with them to make sure that we're leaving enough space in phase 2 for that grade separation to be done. So whatever is designed and constructed for phase 2 will not impact or have to be redone by the designer of the grade separation. And I know that the ideal location is recommended at this point. I don't think it's been approved as far as I know, is really close to the existing location, just a few feet, 50 feet west of the existing location. All right, so we will look at what we've done already. So it all kind of kicked off with James Addington Plaza. Beautiful plaza. It was great to drive up and see it all lit up. Awesome holiday stuff happening here. That really set the tone for kind of inviting a refresh, if you will, of the existing conditions and streets. What kind of furniture we'd like to use, make it a little more modern. And then phase 1 was started in 2021, wrapped up in 2022, and I believe substantially complete in construction just a few weeks ago, last week. Also looks great, did a lot of work, and very happy with how it looks just from the quick walk up. And now we're moving into phase 2, which is the next 2 blocks west of Quincy. Lincoln Street excluded, but Grant Street and Adams Street included. We will look at the parking lot, part of the parking lot there. Trying to refurbish, that's not the right word, but give a nice upgrade to it so that it's better access for pedestrians, better parking for vehicles, and potentially gathering spaces for the public, the stakeholders, and the residents. scope of work. We're looking at a little bit zoomed in of the area so we can see, you know, I think it's right out this window. It's dark out. I'm losing my bearings, but right out this window, this block of Quincy, half of the parking lot, Lincoln Street excluded, the intersection of Grant Street, the intersection of Adams Street, and then those blocks between. You know, Quincy is a little atypical. You have a one-way for one block and then two-way for the westernmost block. So there will be some challenges, but nothing that can't be overcome. As part of, then this is where the engineering comes in, but as part of phase 2, we'll be looking at underground utilities. Storm sewer is a big thing, especially in the village. We'll make sure that the proposed storm sewer design will meet minimum requirements, if not be larger than that, depending on what kind of storms, you know, storm events we need to model for. As you go east to west, I anticipate that that storm sewer network will have to increase in pipe diameter, but we need to dig into that a little bit more, a little more hydraulic modeling, a little better understanding of storm sewer. I believe we have we have water main services that will upgrade along these 2 blocks during design to try and make sure it's all being encompassed in what we want to have done here. The medians with the parking lot, we're looking at changing those a little bit to allow for better pedestrian access, better sidewalk, better walkways, easier ways to get to and from the train station across the street. We will look at parking. We'll talk about parking a little bit more later on, but this gives a pretty good idea of the type of underground work. You know, everybody sees streetscape surface, everybody loves the surface, but it's the underground that really matters and helps continue to make your infrastructure a little bit more sustainable, a little bit better longevity. I just want to make sure I'm not over talking you, Anisha. I feel like I might be.
No, it's okay. You can keep going. If you want me to cover this, it's fine.
It's okay. We'll go here. So we've got the timeline on the board. Here we are today, December 7th, the visioning workshop. We're here to present our ideas, what we've been working on up to this point, gather your feedback. We'll take all that feedback, kind of group it strategically so that, you know, we're seeing the main key factors. And once we have that, we'll take it back to the offices, to the drawing board, revise these concepts that we're going to show you, these opportunities, and then work them into a preferred alternative or a preferred opportunity to share with the village public works. Gather feedback from the public works, go back to the drawing board and kind of tighten it up a little bit better, make it a nicer looking design, a little more feasible, reasonable, and then come back to the village. This time presenting to the village board, talking through what we want to do, and I believe that is where we're at in February and April. And then once we have that last bit of feedback from the village board, we'll come back for another public meeting with the village, the stakeholders, the residents, to make sure we give you all an opportunity to explain the story of how we got from December 7th to this point in April with the preferred concept, and then gather last feedback, make sure we can get a nice looking design that's making as many people happy as we possibly can. Once we get through that last presentation, we really hit the ground in design all the way from the bottom up, quite literally speaking, with utility updates. We'll look at the street and the sidewalk, make sure the geometry makes sense, plaza areas, lighting, electrical, pretty much everything we can do, we will do at that point. And then March of 25 is when we are anticipating for construction to begin. 2025, that is. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Chad, for that introduction, and thank you all for coming here tonight. And we have a short presentation for you, as Chad mentioned, that sort of talks about some of the initial ideas that we've had. But the goal today is really to hear from you all what you would like to see in this space, these 2 blocks. What are some of the things that you're missing in the downtown that we could potentially accommodate here? So by no means, even though you may see some design ideas, they're very early sketches and nothing set in stone as of this point. So the existing context, the red outline really shows the area that we're going to be looking at. That's the project scope of work. The blue lines here clarify the circulation, as Chad mentioned a little bit earlier, that the circulation with one-way streets and two-way streets is a little complicated. So we wanted to make sure that we understood for ourselves how this all is going to work and how the circulation we can make better with some of the concepts that we've come up with now, initial ideas that we've come up with. Here is an entire parking diagram of available parking.
Yeah,
Chad, you
and I
want
can
to
speak
talk
to
a
this a
little bit?
little bit, sure.
Yeah.
So as part of the Phase 1 study, we did analyze existing parking. We looked at these segments here, but also a little bit further to the east with the Phase 1 area parking, and then even across Cass Avenue a little bit on Quincy there. And what we did, we had staff members come out for the 4 hours in the morning, couple hours over the midday, and then 3 hours in the evening during the peak hour travel events. Usually peak hours 7 to 9 in the morning, and then 3 to 5 or 4 to 6 in the evening. And what the staff did was just walk through all the surface parking areas and make a count of if that parking spot, all these parking spots were occupied or available. And then over the course of all those hours, which I think we had 10 hours on the weekday, and then we even came back over the weekend on, over the lunch period, 11, 12, 1, 2, and did another count and captured all that data. The understanding is, you know, your surface parking, your existing parking is fully utilized. And I know this sounds weird, but 85% is usually the percentage we're looking for. If you're making 85%, typically that's seen as a fully utilized parking area. If you're under that, it's a little underutilized. If you're over that, you're starting to look at a parking problem. You may need to come up with some solutions. Here we've got a nice diagram that shows the areas. It breaks it out into a little bit into zones where we're looking, but we have permit parking for Metro commuters in the morning from 6 to 8:30. And then right in front of Village Hall, the angled parking is 4 hours. Directly in front of Village Hall, so across the street's the 4-hour parking. Directly in front of Village Hall, 2-hour parking limits. The parking lot over here is half split with 4-hour limited parking, and then village vehicle parking. And then behind Village Hall, we didn't see any parking restrictions, but it is, and you'll see on the next slide, very well utilized. So you can see how we broke this out into smaller zones to make it easier to read and digest, partially for the public, but mostly for us as engineers. So it's one of the few times where we're starting to agree a little bit, I would imagine. What you can kind of see is a total parking count. The times of days that we were noticing that they were full, the peak utilization, and what that peak utilization was. So in the western half of the parking area, the parking lot that's across the street, 12% on the northernmost and 9% on the southernmost, that was the max utilization we saw in that parking area. And the peak hours being week midday or AM peak hour, which does start to coincide with that permit parking. And then directly across, we're seeing the most utilization right next to the station, which makes sense. Closer to the station, people want to park there, with an 86% utilization at the AM and the midday peak hours. So cars are coming in the morning and staying pretty much all day. What we were noticing in the afternoon is that utilization drops off pretty fast before that evening peak hour hits. And then the zone that's right in front of Village Hall here, 33 spaces, that's the angled on both sides, the north side and the south side of Quincy. 9% utilization, highest utilization time is in the midday and PM peak hour. The parking lot just west of here, 25 spaces, 32% utilized, mostly in the weekday PM peak hour. And then behind Village Hall, almost all day, 76%, pretty good utilization there, which makes sense. A lot of people are parking and coming around. 149 parking spaces total, and 10 ADA spaces what we've collected. And we're not looking to reduce that number with the proposed design.
Okay, so this slide here really shows you some of the site furnishings metrics that are in this spaces. So we've split it up into two parts. The east side, as you can see in the slide, has no litter receptacles. It has 2 benches, 10 light posts. within the project area boundary that you see there in white, 8 shade trees, 15 bike racks, 75 parking spaces. So this is one of the things we try to do at the beginning of every project, is really establish benchmarks of where we are at, what is the baseline. Because our goal is, when we're looking at how to pedestrianize a place, make it more comfortable for public use, these are some, how can we increase some of these metrics to really make the pedestrian quality, improve the pedestrian quality and utilization of the space. So on the west side, again, you can see the metrics: no litter receptacles, no benches, 5 light posts, 9 shade trees, bike racks, no bike racks, and 74 parking spaces, totaling to the amount that Chad just mentioned, 149, if I believe correctly. And then in front of the Village Hall, again, here are the metrics about site furnishings, 13 parking spaces, and 2 light posts. So some of the things that came to light as we were looking at all these existing conditions is really trying to understand what are the issues that we're seeing. One of the key points that we saw, and Chad just mentioned as well, was that a portion of the parking areas are underutilized. Of course, there is lack of shade in the areas where we might consider a potential opportunity for creating a public flexible spaces or public amenities is lacking shade. So that would be one of the goals for us, is to look at how can we increase tree canopy and, create a cooler environment for pedestrian comfort. The other thing we see is generally a lack of flexible space. You may be seeing in some of the towns and villages around you that there are sort of flexible spaces that towns and villages and communities have created that can really support different kinds of activities, whether it is farmers markets, whether it is movie in the park, whether it is car rallies or car shows, things like that. So how can we provide spaces here for you all that can really support all of these activities that that could be really helping build community and bring community together in your downtown. The other aspects that we're seeing as we looked at the existing conditions is really identifying where there is excessive paving. How can we take some of the paving away to provide more green, be more sustainable, create more comfortable conditions? And there's also at these 2 blocks, there is a little bit unclear access to the metro station and the platform. And as we're trying to do, you may have seen in phase 1, and James Addington Plaza was trying to build a aesthetic quality and an identifying quality for the village in terms of the design aesthetic, in terms of the material use, so that the goal being to really bring a cohesive identity across downtown Westmont, so that the material use is the same, you have shade trees, the benches used are the same, the light posts are the same, so that then when you are going to different parts of downtown, you know that you are within the city limits and there is an aesthetic quality about it. So when we came to the board meeting for phase 1, we started talking about these larger goals that the community may be interested in. And one of the tasks for us was to really, how can we create a downtown that is, or spaces in the downtown that are more pedestrian oriented, have more pedestrian oriented amenities, really prioritize people that are walking, want to bring their dog, want to bring their kids to downtown. Safety is a consideration. So how can we create sidewalks that are safe, furnishings that are comfortable, that give people a respite and a place to sit, and really create a common identity that, like I mentioned earlier, within the downtown. Second goal is to really create an upgraded pedestrian and vehicular safety. We know that, for families and people crossing the streets, it's utmost important that safety is a consideration. So how can we start to create that environment that really prioritizes that safety for people? how can we provide more forward-looking amenities, for instance, bicycle parking, that really encourage people to use alternate modes of transportation to come to downtown, to walk to downtown, to bike to downtown. So how can we provide more of those amenities? And of course, flexible programming to really help placemaking create those opportunities for more amenities and program in downtown. The picture here is from the newly constructed multi-use structure in Wheaton that really hosts their French Market area. So it's a very similar condition. It's right adjacent to their train station and their downtown, and really offers the opportunity to create programming and event space within their downtown. So we have here three different initial ideas. And the first idea is really a minimalistic idea, but yet one that offers an opportunity to create a community street. So with this concept, we're calling the community street, where you can see that we've kept most of the parking areas are the same. The road is in the same location. What we've tried to do is really create the front door of the city hall and create a public plaza there, where there can be an opportunity for seat walls for people to seat. There can be an opportunity for fire feature there to bring the community together in that location. There can be an opportunity, and these are all opportunities, for a water feature wall in front that can gracefully transition the great difference between the front door of the city hall from the street. The angle parking remains the same. The amenity zone is extended so that we can have an opportunity to plant trees in where the cars are and where the pavement is to create more cooling effect. The existing trees that are along the residential areas will remain. They're large, beautiful trees. We see no reason to replace them at this point. What we've also suggested here is that we add some bike parking closer to the metro stop. ADA parking, we've indicated, as Chad mentioned, the goal is to keep the ADA parking as close to the amenities and not to change their numbers. And if we can, actually increase them if space allows. And then use the materials that, we've started with the James Addington Plaza, continued in phase one of the Streetscape, which is the Westmont brick that we would like to, include and extend out into this space so as to really make these 3 blocks and 4 blocks cohesive in their design. We also are recommending that we add more planting beds, like you may have seen the native planting beds at James Addington Plaza, really attracting birds and bees. And I think to really bring life back into the downtown, it's important to consider how can we increase pollinator habitat and provide more opportunity for the natural processes to happen in the downtown. And of course, as you see in those little boxes there's also an opportunity to have a weekend market here if the community so desires. So this option really, and at the bottom you'll find some metrics about what kind of site furnishing amenities can be added in this approach. There can be litter receptacles, there can be benches at different locations. Of course, lighting for safety. There will be, right now we're showing about 44 shade trees, about 16 bike racks. And what this does is, because we have increased some of the pedestrian areas where people can sit, we've had to take them out of some of the parking spaces. So this particular option shows 139 total parking spaces, which is about 10 removed from what you have currently. Any questions before I move on to the next one? Okay.
No one raised their hand. So.
Okay, great. So the second option here is what we're calling the pocket park option. In this option, we've taken away some parking spaces in lieu of creating a pocket park for the residents, which includes a children's play area. It includes opportunities for gathering in smaller numbers, and increases green space within the underutilized portion of the parking areas on the west side. What it also does, it creates a brick paver plaza in front of City Hall. Now, this still maintains the circulation that is currently existing, the vehicular circulation that is currently existing. All it does is it slows the traffic down as they're coming up to this brick plaza through a tabletop. And what that will allow is that over the weekends, if you have a farmer's market, let's say in the space that is shown, or a weekend market there, or an event happening in the parking areas of the Metro over the weekend, the opportunity to spill over into this plaza space by cordoning off certain portion of that street allows you the opportunity to have more events in this space over the weekend. So it still maintains ADA parking, it still maintains the other parking. Now, as you can imagine, that in order to create few more pedestrian areas and plazas and green space, we've had to take away a little bit more parking. So in this option, the amenities that are possible can be, of course, litter receptacles, benches, light posts for safety, shade trees. This one actually has more shade trees than the previous option. It can accommodate more bike racks and about 20 bike racks. It does take away about 48 spaces and it still accommodates 101 spaces in and around this area. The circulation, vehicular circulation that was existing previously still remains the same. There is no change to that, with the one-way streets and the two-way streets functioning as they were previously. So then the village challenged us, say, what would we do if we had to completely re-envision this space in front of City Hall? What might be there a possibility if we had to create a green space and a public space that really reimagined, created more opportunities, created an event plaza, an opportunity to have a multi-use structure that can be used for a variety of events? How might that option look like? So what we have in front of you is an option that closes off the street in front of the Village Hall block. It clarifies the vehicular circulation so that both in and out of the parking areas, there is a two-way circulation. Currently, there is a single way into the parking lot. You may come out in two directions with a single way. So we've rearranged the parking so that instead of angle parking, there is head-in parking in this option, and that it helps to clarify how the vehicles move in and out of the parking areas. It also helps to create a opportunity in front of Village Hall to have a plaza area that can have a splash pad. It can have a fire feature where people and kids and families can safely gather. It allows for an opportunity to have a multi-use structure that can be parking during the weekdays and can allow for event space during the weekends. It allows for opportunities for weekend markets to happen in the entire parking lot. It still allows for an opportunity to have kids play area and a pocket park in the western end of the existing parking lot. It still allows ADA parking spots. And actually, through rearrangement of parking areas, this option has slightly more parking than option number 2, in that we were able to get about 107 total parking spaces, only 42 parking spaces removed. But in lieu of that, get more public amenities, more opportunities to have larger events in downtown. I will pause here.
On all these, did you incorporate Simsky Plaza in any of this design so it flows? Like in this one, Simsky Plaza is between Village Hall and the building here. It's a little.
That's right. It does incorporate it does allow for a pedestrian sort of access to go through both areas. So the plaza in front of the park is open and pedestrian oriented, and of course it doesn't include it, but it does allow for a seamless transition to happen between that park and the plaza.
This is the first we're seeing it too, so that if anybody, now's the time if you want a question. We'll have another opportunity. Come on up to the podium. Keep rolling. Yeah.
Well, they're thinking about that. I wanted to add, and actually to, the initial presentation and everything, that this is indeed the project that we're talking about, but to tie in the thought about the pedestrian crosswalk, that is in design, but it's in design by Metra. So what I wanted to point out is that that's still going on in tandem. And what isn't reflected here, and shouldn't be, but we have another project immediately adjacent it with Metra, investing a lot of money in a platform reconstruction and a depot remodeling on the interior too. So that all ties into these thoughts, and how we interface with the depot and how we interface with the platform is important here.
I think that's a really good point, and where the underground or over the rail line pedestrian access is located could be very well tied into this pedestrian space that can be almost a welcoming mat in front of
And vice
that.
versa.
And vice
The
versa.
best way the space is laid out could help dictate where that
Absolutely.
crossing's going.
Absolutely.
State your name.
Oh,
and
sorry, Krista Stanulis. So I just had a quick question. Why do the parking and the, I guess, entertainment space have to be mutually exclusive? Why could we not have a scenario in which the area that's bricked could also be parking? Because the thing is, we're looking at parking now in a post-COVID era, where I think, the utilization of the parking lot is a lot lower than it once was. So planning for long-term, losing those parking spaces might be a bigger deal. Is there a way to kind of have a space that could be utilized when we needed it at weekends or evenings, when people aren't parking there, but still be able to be parkable when, during the daytime hours?
Okay. Well, thank you for your question. And in this option, the structure, the multi-use structure that you see is actually a structure that functions as parking space during the daytime, and it's only during weekends, if you have events, you can utilize that so it's essentially a parking lot under a structure. So it does function as both. But yes, I mean, the goal here is to present you a menu of choices, right? Where do you all want to take Westmont? As you rightly said, coming out of post-COVID era where, people are looking at other opportunities to be able to be outside, dining outside, walking outside, and how can we try to create opportunities that function as both. And thus, yes, absolutely, as we go through this process, we can reevaluate and see, what are the other opportunities to create those flexible spaces that can function as both, like you rightly mentioned.
Come on up.
Mary Beth Carlson, I'm here. I was wondering, are you going to change the surface of the parking lot? Will it be water permeable? Because someone has already mentioned we have a water situation. Also with these children's play areas and the green spaces, which I'm all for. Are you considering green parking lots, like where the water will run into the green spaces and not, again, into our sewers? And also, this may not be your question, but we're contemplating bike racks. Bike racks are great, and it's really great. We have a bike route, I think 1 block over. This may not be your question, this might be streets. Are you going to have a provision for the bikes to come in and park there? Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Our goal is to create as much sustainability with paving as we can possibly do. And as you may have noticed, there are permeable spaces in the new renovated and renewed areas of Quincy Phase 1, as well as James Addington Plaza. The bricks actually that you see are all permeable bricks, so they all take in the rainwater. So that will be our goal with this too, not just with the paving, but also wherever we can integrate rain gardens and green infrastructure, our goal would be to do that.
And it will drain into those green areas.
That's right, that's right.
Excellent, thank you.
And Chad here will ensure the engineering of it, of course.
Yeah, please do, that is totally acceptable. In terms of bike amenities, part of the Phase 1, there's an area that's striped out for a future bike lane. In evaluating the existing bike plan, there's not a ton of information or direction on adding bike lanes or shared bike usage along Quincy Street, mostly Cass, north and south. But we will definitely work to ensure that there's space for a future bike lane if and when that becomes desirous.
The 20 bike racks, you know, the old traditional one is that these are the new modern, how many bikes would park at a rack?
Pardon me?
How many bikes could be parked at a single
Is this
rack?
20 bike racks or bike racks for
Oh,
20 bicycles?
20 bikes.
Okay.
20
I'm
bike
thinking there's-
racks, which you will have two in each direction, right?
And they'll be stationed throughout the,
That's right.
good.
What about charging stations for electric vehicles?
We have, part of Phase 1 has provisions for charging. Charging stations to be along Lincoln Street, I'm sorry. But as part of Phase 2, we haven't delved into that too deeply. We can certainly work with the village to look at where it would make sense for EV to go in. I see Amy creeping up, so I feel like
Yeah.
she's got something to say here.
Just let me add that there's a lot of conversation about wanting to do that. The hard part is picking that right location, and I was hoping that you had more experience than we do in picking that right location, unless Amy has that answer.
Well, it was part of the presentation we were going to give at the last board meeting, which we kind of ran out of time, so we'll be resuming that at a future meeting. But we're going to present some different considerations to do with EV charging and just some ideas to make it cost neutral for us by having like a partnership with a private firm that will identify the best locations for these. They will install them, they will maintain them. They will, you know, handle all of that. And so there's options to do that. There's options to own and maintain them ourselves. But then there's benefits and drawbacks to each one of those options. But we'll be talking about that more and how to proceed with that at a future meeting.
Any other questions before we move forward?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Basic question. When was that?
Kevin,
snapshot of parking utilization?
Give him the mic. We're broadcast, we were going to replay this.
Okay, trying to be loud. So I'm curious when that snapshot of parking utilization was made. I'm assuming it was post-pandemic, during the period when commuter use was very low and long before these new restaurants are possibly opening on Quincy. We have possibly 5 new restaurants opening along there and very limited parallel parking there. So I'm assuming there would be a much higher demand for parking close to those restaurants in that first block of Quincy. And yet we seem to be pushing the only available parking further west.
Sure, I'm going to head back up to answer that question. That's a very good question. The parking study was completed as part of Phase 1, so in the winter of 2021 and 2022. What we found as time has gone on, 2022 was about the year everything got back to normal, at least as much as it's going to. It's hard to say if everything will ever go back to pre-COVID traffic and parking, but we do see enough of what's happening now in 2022 and 2023 to say that it's back to what it was. We can certainly work to take another look at that and make sure that what we're providing as far as information and numbers does make sense in terms of current day information. We can work with the village on that and try and come up with different numbers, take another peek at it, and make sure that the utilization does match what we previously showed you.
Can I add to that, please? Very, good thought and observation, and it also ties in, well, several subject matters, but it's the difference between the public patron parking and the commuter demand. So while things were in construction, and the pandemic certainly has changed commuter traffic, I'll speak to that second. While construction was on, and with phase one, we've eliminated the angle parking that was right in front of the businesses. We replaced it with some parallel parking on either side, of course, as the numbers don't match. And now this first block is very reliant for the business use, the on Quincy, on-street public parking, so that's, a good thought. We were also doing an alley, there were 5 projects going on at the same time. And we're doing alley reconstruction, and then there were the tall buildings that didn't have access to their garages, and we displaced them. Some of them were across Cass Avenue and Holy Trinity. Some were given overnight parking permits out here. So for the last few months, this has been pretty densely filled, and only a fraction of it's been commuter parking. But then to think about that, the commuter parking demand, although low, it's higher in this lot. We have 2 locations for commuter parking here, and then across the tracks on the north side, Burlington Avenue, where you'd be hard pressed to find 10 cars over there, and there's 100-something spaces available. So we have the potential or ability to disperse or diversify the commuter demand on 2 different sides. So that's, think of that as an opportunity.
I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, we're very sensitive to parking. Just because what you're seeing here looks like we're eliminating, taking away, pushing it further west, does not mean that's what the final thing will look, or the final design will look like. Our goal here is to make everybody happy, but as much as we can reasonably. So with parking, we can definitely help look at it again and make sure, we're meeting everybody's requests as well as we can.
Come on up, Will. You got to get a mic in your hand. He'll never give it back, though.
Will Sperling. My question is, I am physically handicapped. I have 2 titanium knees, and I have a titanium bird cage in my cervical spine. Can you tell me how many handicap spaces you will have near the restaurants? Because sometimes I have good knee days, sometimes I have bad knee days. Today's a particularly good knee day. But on the bad knee days, I couldn't walk from there all the way to the restaurants if I wanted to have dinner or lunch.
Another great question. Phase 1, as mentioned earlier, is in front of the restaurants for the most part, and that was substantially complete in the last week or 2. Going back and adding ADA spaces is something we can work with the village on. But rest assured, moving forward, the number of ADA spaces will be exactly the same, if not more, dependent upon the Illinois code as how many spaces you need to provide. I believe it's 1 every 25 total spaces, but
yeah.
maybe misquoting that.
It's even more, yes, but off-street parking. So you only want to answer the question on what's technically required by law. It doesn't apply to on-street parking. So that is our own consideration how we want to make it.
We can work in phase 2 to make sure there's plenty of ADA parking near the restaurants within the limits of work that were shown previously on previous slides.
Before they move on, any questions? Any more? Okay.
Well, you'll have opportunity to kind of go on all these stations and be more specific about what are the things that you like. So this slide here really shows that we will be continuing the use of the materials that we've started using in James Addington Plaza and Quincy Phase 1. So the bricks, the concrete walls, the curbs, planting beds with native planting, and as some of these options had, concepts had an option for a fire feature or a water feature or a spray pop jet area. Again, the litter receptacles, the metal planters, the bike racks, the benches, and the light poles. we are going to be using, continuing the use of what we started off in phase one. Here are a couple of examples that the village is considering to make sure that the lighting is compliant with dark sky. We've, right from the onset of the project in James Addington, the village has been advocating for wanting to be considerate and look forward into the future in terms of sustainability, in terms of light spillage. And so these are some of the options the village is considering amongst, in case there is a change of light pole direction. Some of these options can be dark sky compliant. I don't know, Manager May, if you had to say
Well put.
something.
Especially the part that we've been bugging you about it for a long time.
Yes, I conveniently omitted that part. So I guess we're at a stopping point where we'd really like to see, hear more from you about what your expectations are about amenities, about spaces. I know you have expressed concerns about parking areas or taking away parking areas. Are other things that you feel like we haven't looked at and we should be considering, or what do you hope to see? So this is really an open discussion, because our goal here is to really hear you. Yes.
Krista Stanulis again. So I'm actually a member of Westmont's Environmental Improvement Committee. And as you mentioned, dark sky fixtures, it's interesting that that's been in discussion since James Addington Plaza, because I guess it's something we've been talking to the village about since 2018. And since that time, we have 32 or 31 new Acorn fixtures in town, the majority of these being in the Quincy area and in Addington Plaza. And we understand also the Westmont is reconsidering what to do with the light fixtures overall. But as the EIC, as a group, we want to recommend that you consider dark sky fixtures for all these projects moving forward. Excessive lighting at night, especially the cool blue, has negative effects on humans, animals, insects, and the sky glow prevents us from seeing our stars. In addition, there's a lot of money wasted in lighting the night sky instead of lighting the ground, and it contributes to glare and poor nighttime visibility also. One of the things you can see with the current Acorn fixtures, we actually have a good display now that we have just hung all of these wreaths in town right underneath the acorns, and you can see that they look lovely during the day, but they basically disappear at night, right? Because all of our light is going outward and upward instead of directly below them. So the most cost-effective way to address the situation moving forward is in the planning phase. So in our current Quincy situation now, because we've continued to use the same fixtures, a certain spacing has been set up, and now if we wanted to go back and look at those, we have to find a fixture where that spacing works with what's been installed. In the existing locations, we might not have that opportunity, but in this situation, we definitely have the opportunity, if you're placing the fixtures, to take a look at it and see that we're, actually going through the effort of doing photometrics with the dark sky fixtures to see that we're meeting the requirements, not just of the lighting levels, but also the uniformity ratios, so that we're creating an environment that's comfortable to be in, that's safe, and that's being respectful of the dark sky initiative. One other thing, in addition to dark skies, also is with the LEDs. A lot of times, LED lights have exposed diodes, and something to keep in mind. So to give consideration, not just for aesthetics, but for safety and glare, to consider dark sky fixtures that also have some sort of lens or diffused light or reflected light, so that it would be a more comfortable light experience, especially if we're going to be utilizing this as a pedestrian area also. So the dark sky fixtures that you showed just now, or the ones that we're proposing in these things, I think one of the big concerns is if we're beholden to a certain single vendor, then we're really not opening ourselves up to see what is available for Westmont and how we can reconsider this, because these are all, I think, fixtures that our current vendor has, and as the EIC has kind of gone through their showroom and everything to see what they have, they don't have a huge selection of dark sky fixtures to choose from. So I think if we open it up to other vendors, that would also be important. And also, not all vendors understand what dark sky compliant means. So just going the extra effort to make sure that we're casting a broad net and making sure that we're opening those up to other companies, so that as we move forward, both in this project and if we look at reconsidering what we're doing with lighting moving forward in the village for the existing fixtures, that we can go in a direction that's positive. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Sorry. Again, still Mary Beth Carlson. I'm the precinct captain for this district here, so I do a lot of canvassing with people. And I don't know if you mentioned furniture and such. A lot of the people really miss the water that used to be the fountain over there. So I was very happy to see that you have some of these that have water features. I'd really, really, really like to push that, because that's what these people always tell me, oh, what happened to the fountain? Also, the benches, some of the people I deal with are have trouble walking, or they're older people or special needs or children, and they used to like to sit in that, what's now the James Addington. Are you considering different benches, like with backs on them, for the people who need that? And then I can, if you answer that, I'd have some answers for the people who have questions for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you for your comments. I do have a question for you. The newly installed benches on the Quincy Phase 1, do you hear any feedback on, I know it's just been substantially complete, but
Where that is?
yeah.
Oh, okay. Really, honestly, because I had to do walking around and people were talking about it, the concrete with the metal bars, first of all, nobody understood that until I said, well, I think that's a skateboarder thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the second thing I heard was, well, we can't sit there anymore. It's concrete. It hurts my back. It hurts my butt. It's not comfortable for our older people and for our people with special needs. And so I'm going to have to tell you, I didn't hear good things about that. Sorry.
That is something we can definitely consider as we're sort of looking in this new phase to see how we can, make that more comfortable for people.
You've got another staff member trying to mosey up here.
I see a progression in these examples of basically getting more park light.
Name, Joe?
Excuse me?
Your name, please?
What's your
Oh,
name?
Joseph Entervine, Village of Westmont. But I see a progression in your three examples that get more park-like and event-oriented. At what point do you start looking at facilities like restrooms? Is it going to be served in the existing train station? Is Village Hall going to do that? But if I was bringing my kid to the play area and I wanted to spend some time there, then I suddenly realize I need to find a place to go.
That's a really good point, and thank you for that comment. Of course, as we think about what exact amenities get integrated into the preferred plan, of course, we'll be thinking about those amenities, how to make all of the, if a restroom consideration needs to be had, et cetera. Definitely. Thank you for that comment, and we'll make a note of that. What are we missing?
Trustee Barker, who's the chair of our most aggressive and active committee. They do a lot of work.
Aggressive.
Oh, no, I didn't mean aggressive. I mean, you guys are the most committed committee.
It's a very good committee. I'm proud
That's
to be the
what
chairman of
I
that.
shouldn't have said aggressive, but you are very, very
Good-
knowledgeable.
I like the good-looking group.
Yeah. Good luck.
So when Addington Plaza was finished, I went over there with my grandson, brought some local bakery with me. We had a great time. We went over and we played checkers, because I thought a 4-year-old should learn how to play checkers. Are there parks or people doing this in this area where they have a fixed table? Now, I brought my own, because I knew there wasn't one there, but if there was a fixed table there, it's ideal for lunch or coffee or muffins or whatever it happens to be. And that's the park I want to go to in a couple of years when I retire. And I agree, the concrete was a little bit hard, but I brought a pad. I didn't bring one for him because he's young, but I brought my own pad and I brought my own table. But if the table was there, if that's a situation where people would enjoy that as something a little bit more unique, checkers, chess, whatever it happens to be. Video gaming, you can probably do that there too now. But just adding that to the conversation.
No, thank you for that, and
Depot.
we will make a note of it. Now there is site furniture that comes with those decals that have chess and checkers on them. we installed some in Wheaton, and
Are they used?
well, I don't know. I actually have to go back and say, because the consideration there is, like you said, you brought your own checkers. So the consideration we had been initially thinking about is how can we provide a situation where sort of maybe a repository of available chess and checkers available so that it's easy for people to sort of loan it from an adjacent restaurant. So we were talking through some of those considerations. And I think we also had a tennis table
Yeah,
there
yeah.
that didn't get installed, but is still sitting with the city of Wheaton, but, yeah.
Thank you.
But yeah, yes, we'll definitely consider that in the site furniture.
So both of those last two questions are, I just wanted to point out, is Metro's thinking that way too. So the improvements inside the depot, they're looking at the bathroom and actually, ways to use the unused space there. And then there's a lot of good space right out on top, out in front of the, the depot for these same opportunities, whether it's sit and eat or sit and play, but.
Yeah, he loved the trains, but I did beat him in checkers, right?
Yeah.
Still.
He put you in a pickle.
He did.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi, my name's Mike Lynn. I'm just a resident here. I apologize, I came in late, so I did miss a good chunk of your lecture. So maybe the points that I'll make, you guys had already addressed, but a couple things. One is I remember at the James at the Eddington Plaza that there was a drinking fountain. I don't know. There was. But I don't know if there is one now. I think that might have gotten taken away. So that's one thing. It was kind of handy at the time when I had a small kiddo like that every so often. And then let me see. That I do like the Eddington Plaza, like how it was designed and like the materials and things. At times, I wonder if it was a little bit too cut up, like where it might be nice to have a bit of a clearing of space. No, we did achieve that, of course, across the street. Now that's a giant clearing of space, so that's nice. I just wonder, just sometimes imagine like a space where you could watch people run around and like kids and things. I have two little kiddos, so of course I'm a little bit more youth focused right now. And then sometimes I appreciate in parks. I don't know what's those yellow triangles on the left portion, but I sometimes appreciate in other playgrounds and parks. Sometimes when it looks like a mature like adult park, but that it might have equipment in it, or like I might have something that facilitates like kids to play on it. A great example, of course, is the what do you call it? The Picasso downtown, where like it looks like a normal mature like a sculpture, but yet kids slide down it. Like so, things like that. I think it's kind of fun, like to have that doesn't look like a hokey pokey looking like or tacky playground equipment, like off the shelf purchased playground, but instead has something that actually looks sculptural and things. I sometimes think that looks nice, so that was just like another thought that I had. But thank you very much for a lot of the work that you've done. Like I think a lot of it looks great and is a nice improvement to the town. But anyway, that's that. So
Thank you so much for your comments, and of course, we will add that to our list of should-haves within the prom. Yeah, no, definitely.
Okay.
Well, maybe I can ask a question. What are some of the amenities that you think, or events that you think that Westmont could have that you don't currently have? Are there any that come to mind that you look at neighboring towns that would be good to have in Westmont?
Probably a farmer's market would be the first thing. We've got, the street closes Cass Avenue for the cruising nights. 14 or 16 weeks out of the year, we have the festivals. Used to use this for powwow days, but that's gone. And we have places to run festivals now. So probably market day, some crafts, entertainment and crafts.
Yeah, and I was thinking the special events that are not ours and are like service organization based, they now all end up at Ty Warner Park, which is fantastic, but they're all in the same place. So there's an occasional request to use this parking lot for a one weekend, event. So, speaking for others, but that comes up every year.
If you had to choose an option between the three, would there be one option or parts of one option that would interest you?
No, it's totally fine.
I'm sorry, I hate to beat a dead horse, but the water option, if we could put that, I like the idea of the waterfall or something you said here. That would be good. That would be really nice. Make a lot of people happy in the village. Thanks. And a water fountain.
And a water fountain.
Yeah.
And drinking water fountain, yes, absolutely.
There is a water fountain on the north side of the tracks, but that's point taken still. Actually, I
Fire
don't know if that works.
feature interest anyone?
Children, I'm sorry, again. I'm on his committee. Maybe it's pretty and everything, but we have a lot of kids now running around through Westmont, and I just think fire and children, a lot of them are little. Water is more friendly, I thought. Thank you.
There you go.
Not my department.
On my way.
Very sensitive to that.
No, it's all right.
Jason Vitale, Village of Westmont. I see the direction that this is going, and it's great that you want to explore different uses. One thing I think has been lost is the Village Hall is used for daily business. Each of the options progressively did push parking further and further away from the Village Hall. And I wanted to point out, or at least indicate, that when you were asked when the parking assessments were made, and you were told that there were multiple projects going on, so on and so forth. The fact of the matter is the business district wasn't built out at the time that you did that either. So I think you might need to reassess a lot of the parking needs going forward for the parking counts. And as far as the Village Hall parking is concerned, if you assess them at different times of the day, you probably missed out on the fact that the transitory nature of people conducting business at the Village Hall is probably a 10 to 15 minute experience. And you might have hundreds of people throughout the day versus what you assessed as a very small percentage. So I just wanted to keep that in the focus, that it's probably useful to have parking spaces close to the Village Hall. And I would be remiss, again, if I didn't speak on behalf of the fire department that says the further away you make it accessible for emergency vehicles is probably a little less safe. So, thanks.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Should have looked for it all the way back.
My name is Michael Tallier. I actually own the business right next to the Village Hall. I just want to make a comment about parking. I've been here about 12 years, and our hours are like 1 to 9, and we have never had issues with parking. In fact, we have ample parking throughout the day, throughout the weekend. And so I actually love the idea of option 3, where we do more. Personally, I don't see losing 40 spaces being an issue because, like I said, as a business owner here, I've never seen that we've filled up those spaces. So even in your assessment in 21 or whatever it was, 10 years before that, it wasn't filled either. So just my 2 cents.
The restaurant.
Just as long as we're on parking and traffic flow. My name is Kevin Field. I live first house on Lincoln. And we now have traffic only going one direction on Quincy east, traveling west. And if we start having special events and weekends, whatever, we start blocking off that space passing past the Village Hall and shunting all that traffic down Lincoln, I think we ought to consider flipping. Currently, parking is only on the east side of Lincoln, and I think we ought to consider flipping that so the parking would be on the west side of Lincoln, so that traffic coming west down Quincy, turning onto Lincoln, can then park on that right-hand side as they're traveling south.
That's a good point.
Street.
And again, this is why we have the visioning, so we can get all the comments from business owner, someone who lives adjacent, staff, so they'll have more questions, so continue.
Yeah, we may be near the end.
I think we're right at the end, and if you want to send more comments, you could scan that QR code. And I think at this point, we can, we can disperse and go to various stations here and option boards. There'll be a person from the design team that would be, can take your comments, have conversations, and discuss your comments and issues and concerns in a somewhat greater detail, if you like.
I'd like to move those three out front here, and just make more room.
Sure.
And maybe if they have a preference, put that down, if you prefer 1, 2,
We can't
3.
adjourn the meeting right now, but we can still.
No, the meeting, it's a vision workshop, the workshop's still continuing.
I don't know that we got to keep recording it, or
Never had a motion to adjourn.
I make the motion to.
No, no. No,
I mean, you're still participating. Actually, the meeting's still open,
Yeah.
but we'll,
Yeah.
I think I'll.
Please come,
And the
when
recording.
they set these up, please
Can't
come up and
adjourn.
take a look at each one. Their staff is